In the meantime, these elections are hot. Our next guest is a Republican running for governor of New Mexico, campaigning on crime and the economy. In a tight race that once leaned Democrat is now seen as a toss-up. That's according to our latest Fox News Power Rankings. Mark Ronchetti wants the job, and he's with us now. Sir, good morning to you, and thank you for your time here.
Good morning, yes.
How are you going to turn this state red? It's been some time.
Well, I'll tell you what we're looking at, and you see what's happening in New Mexico. Crime is a huge issue here. And we just had 2 weeks ago the largest FBI fentanyl bust in the history of the FBI. There was 1 million fentanyl pills they pulled out of the South Valley of Albuquerque. And when they asked the drug cartel members who were dealing here in New Mexico, why are you here versus California, where you used to be based? And they said, because it's easier to be us in New Mexico. And that gives you an idea of what we're looking at here. We have a governor that unfortunately has turned violent criminals back out on the street again during the COVID time period and since then as well. She continues to do it here, and our prison population is 20% lower than it was when she took office here in the middle of a crime explosion where we have seen in the Albuquerque area year over year records for murder. So what we've got right now effectively is a lawless state right now where we have to get this back. And so many people in New Mexico realize it, you guys. And I think they're getting on board with this campaign because this is not partisan. This is one of those issues that everyone knows we have to get this under control. And unfortunately, we have a governor who hasn't done it.
So the governor is Michelle Lujan Grisham. She's had some problems in her past, recent past, COVID response, for example, but also a little bit of a scandal there on sexual harassment, actually. But she's still the governor there. And we have the race as a toss-up. So the other thing I would point out, though, is that Hispanic voter motivation in the state, according to the Quinnipiac, call for number 5, asking, how motivated are you to vote in this year's midterm election? And 46% of people, Hispanics in the state, said they are more likely. What are they mostly concerned about? Is it crime, inflation, and also education is a problem, I believe, in New Mexico?
Dana, you're exactly right. And I think those are the 3 big issues. And they're not partisan issues per se, but what we've seen is a legislature and especially a governor who haven't addressed them. We are 51st in education now that they count Washington, D.C. And we were out of school the 6th most days of any state in the country here. And the biggest problem is that there's been no plan to catch kids up. No summer academies across the state to get kids caught up. And that's where we're focusing a lot of our efforts on our education plan. And then obviously you mentioned the crime issue continues to be an issue that we talked about. The border is also a big problem here. Remember, you hear about Arizona, you hear about Texas, but you don't hear about New Mexico. We have a 180-mile stretch of the border where the governor has pulled the National Guard away. We continue to see fentanyl flowing up through the state here, and as that happens, we lose 1 to 2 New Mexicans a day to fentanyl overdose. So what we've proposed here is working more closely with Arizona and Texas, and we're also going to have a border strike force, which is going to go after the fentanyl and the human trafficking here as well. So it's those 2 big issues, no doubt, crime and education. And then the economy is a huge issue as well, Dana. When you look at the state of New Mexico, we have a tax rate right now which kills working families, especially at a time when prices are skyrocketing. We want to cut that tax rate in half for working families to make sure they can get to the end of every month.
Sounds like it's target rich. One last question here. You are by training a television meteorologist. How often are you asked about climate change, and what do you say?
Well, I'm asked to some degree we talk about it. There's no doubt. And I think where it turns, Bill, is that we talk a lot about what do you do on policy to address things. And I've said, look, do we have to address climate change? We do, but we are the number 2 oil and gas producer in the world. No one does it in the country. No one does it more cleanly and efficiently than we do here. So the key for New Mexico is, and for people to realize is, if we took that oil and gas production and we moved it to Saudi Arabia or we moved it to Russia, you would produce 30% more CO2. So even if CO2 is your only metric of concern, you should want to produce right here in New Mexico. We're going to fill the gap over the next 10 years. This state is ready to do it and ready to take off economically as well. So, Bill, there's a way to address these issues with an all-of-the-above approach and make sure that we keep production going here because no one does it better than we do.
Well, I can see why the race is a toss-up. You are gaining on the incumbent governor there. It's a tight race. We will watch it. We appreciate you getting up early for us.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks, you guys. Always enjoy the show.
Take care.